channel, I've been thinking about whether to continue reading from Alone, book one, as this is how we started the channel. When I started the channel, I wasn't sure. No, I was sure. When I started the channel, I was sure that I want to read my memoir and reflect, which is why when you look at the banner of the Lebule channel, there's reading, reflecting, teaching, and coaching. And I started with reading from my memoir and just reflecting back and, juxtaposing the Lebukile then and the Lebukile now and everything in between. I took you back to my childhood, which, some of the reflections and some of the memories caught me by surprise. There'd be moments where after recording, I would just cry my eyes out, which then talks to how incredibly layered the healing process is. And as someone who has been in the healing and coaching and teaching space for a while now, I mean, it's nearly 15 years. It's nearly 15 years. I formally started coaching in 2014. And when I say formally, I mean, putting a price to it. But I had been doing it even before that, informally, and so those years accumulate. And in the healing, whenever I coach my clients or in session with people, I always say that healing is cyclical. It's very spiral, but the spiral goes up. It doesn't spiral down. It spirals up, meaning that old wounds will always come back or they will return when you are at a different phase of your life. Do you see? I'm literally doing this on purpose, that, you deal with the fact that you had a business that went bankrupt at this level, and then you deal with it again when you start a second business, and then you deal with it again when maybe you're in a different space. You deal with it again when you're at a it's always unfolding, but it's always different. And I realized that since I wrote this book, because this book is now 11 years old, Alone Book One was written in 2014 or was published in 2014. It was written over a few years. I'd write and stop, write and stop. And as much as it is thin, it was edited to be that way so that you give people enough to get a sense of who you are and the lessons, but not so much detail to, drown people in your story, especially when they don't know you. But I've been writing it over a few months and a few years before it being published in 2014. And I realized that since writing the book, I never really read it. I've never read the book. I would be at book launches, I would be at the Alone dialogues, which were so awesome. They were so awesome. The Alone dialogues were where readers, people who've read the book would then share their alone story, share their own pivotal moments. They would read from my part, from wherever in my story and relate. It is one of the most relatable books I think I know. You could have never been in business ever. You've never been an entrepreneur, but there is something in the book that you will relate to. Most of us grew up in townships as Black people. So it's very, very relatable. So I'd have those, but I would never really sit and read the book. One would maybe read an excerpt and then we talk through it from the perspective of the reader, not necessarily from me, because I had written the book. And when I started the YouTube channel, the exercise was I'm gonna read and reflect. And the purpose was not necessarily to sell the books. If you do want to buy, you can always buy. No one. There are books. I have quite a few books actually. So you can buy, and we do deliver via Paxi. I never know if it's Paxi or Paxi, Pep stores. And I just was not prepared. To be honest with you, I was not ready for what rereading, not even rereading, just reading, because I wrote the book and I left it for the reader. And then I was now the reader of the book. And apart from the whole critique of it, because, as authors or as creators, we criticize our own work. There was obviously the critique in my head that, oh, the sentence could have been so much better. This paragraph, oh my God, really, you're such a rookie. That's fine. I mean, that happens with everyone and their work. But I was also the reader. in that I am reading about a young woman who was barely 30 and has gone through so much in her life. And at 49, I'm now processing from a completely different space. And nothing could have prepared me for that. Nothing. Because in my mind, I had processed a lot of things. I've been to therapy, I've had my own coaches, I've dealt with this thing. For crying out loud, I wrote about these things. But gosh, the way they came flooding back, which is why pivoting to teaching, which I knew it would happen. I knew I would teach, but I thought it would be like a nice, I'll be teaching and coaching and then reading, teaching, coaching, reading. But I saw myself teaching more because, deep down I was avoiding, deep down I was avoiding to read the book because it is just stirring up too much. And one thing I always advise people against is to bleed all over the place, is to bleed live. I'm not saying don't cry, but unraveling in front of people is just, it's not pretty. And that has nothing to do with being vulnerable. Vulnerability is something you do in your private space with people that you trust. When you are bleeding all over the place, you are like Makoto. Makoto on Married at First Sight, a show that it is literally the only show I watch on Showmax. Because I'm a life coach and, seeing relationship dynamics is content for me. It's content for us people in the teaching space because we see what we see and it informs some of our teachings. It informs the newsletters we write. It informs how we coach as well. I mean, it is content. It is just content galore. In fact, that whole Moja love is content for, okay, maybe not all of it. Some of it is just traumatic. But Makoto, for an example, who thinks that she is a no-nonsense person. She can tell it like it is. She is not going to be stumbled on. She's just bleeding father issues, mother wound, daddy issues, and some of the traumas that she sort of mentioned. I think in one of the episodes, she mentioned that she was nearly raped, or she was nearly raped. Those are very, very traumatic things, and that's pain that is almost performed. But I don't think she knows that she's bleeding. She thinks she's authentic and she's, being herself, if you like. But so avoiding to read again, for me, I'm avoiding that, oh my God, maybe I'm just bleeding all over the place. And I know that the part of it is probably me judging myself, but I wanted to just come out clean and say that this is what's happening. I am going to read something. I'm just going to read. I'm not sure if I want to reflect, but I'm going to read because I want to finish the book. I mean, there's a few pages left. And once again, a few pages on Alone, book one, is layers and layers of stuff. It's thin, but it's loaded. So even if I say it's few pages, I know it's loaded. One paragraph in J will tell you so much. It will unpack so much. But I wanted to honor the fact that I left it in the middle. If you know anything about me, you know I don't do loose ends. I like to complete things. I don't like unfinished business. It doesn't work for me. And it's not OCD. Definitely not OCD. I just like to know that this chapter is closed and then we're starting a new chapter. So I sort of left it dangling. And I know there are other viewers who came for that. You subscribed for that, not so much for the teaching of masculine and feminine. It's probably overwhelming for some of you. So I want to honor that. But before I read the book, I wanted to just come out clean and just tell you what the process has been like for me. But I also wanted to invite you, because I've been thinking a lot about how I want to channel the channel, where I want to take it. Do I want to turn it into a podcast as well or not? I've been thinking a lot about that. But one thing I know for sure that I want to do is I would like to hear some of your stories. That is like, as my slogan goes, this is my story. I cannot wait to hear yours. I would like to hear your story. In other words, you don't have to have written a book, but you would have to write something. So you'd have to have written a blog for yourself, or you'd have journaled about something, or you'd have gone through something, experienced something, that you feel like you want to share it with me. And the structure would be that you'd share the thing, either you'd read from the passage or you'd just relate the story, what you're taking out of it, your reflections of that part of your life then and now, the reflective process, and what you want to leave us with, what you want to share with us. That's kind of the format I want to have. Nothing long, definitely nothing longer than 30 minutes. So we can expand the whole thing. I'd really, really want to hear your story. Now, the challenge is because I am stuck somewhere in the middle of nowhere and I don't have a studio. The format I would like to do is I would want someone to record themselves on Zoom, like I am recording myself on Zoom. You record while you're reading. I would have sent you questions and you just reflect. And then I make it into a video. That's just the format I'm thinking about. And I'm thinking out loud. It might not end up like that. And this is the beauty of, having a brand new concept or a brand new platform. You can just try things out. And if they don't work, yeah, well, you try something else. And that's also the beauty of having been an entrepreneur, self-employed. I am not fazed by something not working out. It pains me, yeah. I mean, because we all want to start something and want to see it succeed. But it doesn't faze me if I try something and it just doesn't work out, and you try something else, it doesn't work out, and you try something else. I mean, after all, that's what life is about. I don't think life was meant to be you go to school, you go to university, you get married, you have 2.5 kids, you pay your insurances, the policies, you retire, and then get on a cruise when you're 65. I think that's the wrong script, honestly. I think that is the most horrific script ever. I think maybe that's why my entire life, if you've been following the reading of my story, I think my entire life was just to rebel against that system. I remember when I started going into the workspace, and I don't want to say corporate because I don't think I have the right to speak about corporate because I've never really tasted corporate the way my friends, my clients have tasted corporate. So I'll just say workplace. When I started in my 20s to work, it just didn't work. It was like wearing a top that doesn't quite sit well. Intle yona, mara unso ilukisa, unso ilukisa. That's that's what working felt like for me. The only place that I felt like, okay, I think I belong in this space was in the self-employment space. On when I was sharing about the journey, in my office furniture, when I was selling office furniture. Yeah, that's when I felt like, okay, I think I'm in my zone a little bit, but it was also just a part of my life. Being in hardcore entrepreneurship, selling, traveling the entire Gauteng and other parts of the country as a salesperson, as a business development person, was a chapter in my life, leading to what I am doing today, which I also think might just be a chapter in my life because I feel like something is coming. I'm not going to share now because it's still in ideation space. There's something interesting that wants to emerge in my world. It's not far from here. It's definitely a continuation of the healing and teaching, but it's taking a different form. And I'm excited about whatever it is that wants to come through. So even you, wherever you are right now, whatever you're doing, if it feels like it's a chapter if it feels like it's ending, even if you loved your job, even if you love your job and you suddenly feel like, actually, I don't know if this is the thing anymore. I don't know if I want to continue on this path anymore. Just trust that. And that doesn't mean drop everything, leave your job and just be a freelancer like Bolo. Bruna already season as a game with now we are used to this. We are used to uncertainty. If there's one thing about being an entrepreneur or an entrepreneurial, because I still insist that I'm not an entrepreneur, but I am entrepreneurial. Yeah, I'll explain that some other time, but I think someone gets it. An entrepreneur is someone who's like Visitor Maguire, who's scaling, who's building business after business, who's looking at the numbers and the scales and let it be bigger and better. Yeah, that's an entrepreneur. I'm not that. But entrepreneurial is that I do not, my income is solely from me. It is solely from my efforts and the systems I put in place and the work that I do. I'm not an employed person. My income does not come from being employed by somebody, so I'm entrepreneurial in that way. Freelancers are entrepreneurial, or some freelancers, maybe not all. Some freelancers are entrepreneurial. So that's the difference. And yeah, so this feels like a nice rumble. And before I rumble even further, let me just conclude by saying I will read. I'm not going to read now in this video. The next video I will read. I want to start from where I left off, where I was about to tell you about a relationship I had with a supplier, a very, very beautiful supplier. The company was called OCW, and the owner was Ian and Brian. And the one that I bonded with was Brian, old white guy. And I want to just share a story of how sometimes when you are young and you don't know what you don't know, you miss out. You make a big, maybe not big, but you make a mistake that is meant to teach you something. Because some mistake, not some mistake, all mistakes are meant to teach you something, but others are meant to teach you much, much bigger lessons than meets the eye. And the lessons I learned from that mistake was to trust and value relationships, which I do. Which I do. I mean, if there's one thing about me, I'm very, very careful with people's hearts. Very careful. We might have our own differences. We might struggle with an issue or something. We might squabble about money, but I'm always careful around people's hearts because I think that's where the preciousness is, which is why I always find it strange when people fall out because of money. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. That are you seriously going to lose a valuable relationship for something that you can replace? And I don't care about the amount. I really don't care because if you operate at hundreds of thousands or even more, or 50,000 or even smaller, wherever you operate, that's where you operate, right? And if you lose those types of amounts, that's where you operate. You can always get it back. But to lose a relationship that you've built over years because of Chile, that has never ever made sense to me. So those are the lessons that I've learned from Brian, and I'm going to bring them to you probably in the next day or two. I'll come back and I will read. But I didn't want to just start the reading after we finished on that subject that never ends. That subject never actually ends. Masculinity and femininity, it never ends. Even now, I thought, I still have to share about when men get in touch with their feminine side. But we can always go back. We can always revisit that. So this was just a nice interlude before a transition from teaching to getting back to reading. And I'm going to read the whole book, the rest of the book. Maybe I'll have 4 or 5 videos just finishing to read book 1, and then we'll get back to teaching. And in the new year, we will maybe start reading book 2. Or because book 2 is strictly about my entrepreneurial journey. Yes, let's actually start it next year. Because I wanted to also, another idea was to maybe read it in November because it's Global Entrepreneur Week. There's Global Entrepreneur Week in November. So November felt like the right time to teach on entrepreneurship. I mean, to read from my book and teach on entrepreneurship. We'll see. So don't hold me to November and don't hold me to next year. We shall see how this thing unfolds. Okay, the rambling. And let me stop rambling and let me just say the next time you see me, I will be reading and I will be completing the book, and there'll be probably 4, maybe 5 videos just finishing reading Alone, Growing Up in Alexandra, book 1. And speaking of Alone, Growing Up in Alexandra, please buy the book if it is pulling at your heartstrings. Details to buy are somewhere here on the screen. It's really just an email, and then you order. We give you banking details or a link. You pay, we deliver. It's as simple as that. And if you want to join my community on Patreon, if you are more into my teachings, join my Patreon. And if you have been coming to this channel for a while and you forgot that you need to subscribe, please subscribe. YouTube is intense, guys. YouTube growth is harder than I thought. I knew it was hard. I came here knowing that it's going to take a while to grow followers. But between you and me, I thought by now, especially with the frequency of my videos, I thought maybe we would have gone over 250. So help me get to 200 subscribers. Help me get to 200 subscribers. So, so that I can feel like, okay, there's people, there's an audience. And the beauty though about you guys as my audience is that you come back. You come back. YouTube tells me all the time that I have the best retaining of subscribers. So you don't subscribe and run. You subscribe and you come back and come back. And I do get a lot of viewers who do not subscribe. So I'm appealing to you. Just subscribe. I mean, King, yini into snacks. Give Alexander. Yini into snacks. Just subscribe and help me grow the channel because it looks like I'm here for a long time. I'm here for a long time, not a short time. Do you know that song, yeah, Big Sean? I'm here for a long time, I'm here. Big Sean says, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. I am way up. I'm feeling blessed. This is my story. I cannot wait to hear yours.